Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Alex, and these are 5 short books to start reading habit that are actually worth the read. The first book is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's less than 100 pages long and it is a classic of children's literature, but I don't think that really means that it can't be enjoyed by adults as well. And every time that I reread it, there's something new that I learn. It's a story about companionship and about refinding that childlike curiosity that we tend to lose as we grow up and we have to, well, frankly get forced into the world of adults, of numbers, of jobs, and of responsibilities. The second book is John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, and it clocks in at just over 100 pages, around 105, 106, depending on the edition. Like The Little Prince, it also talks about companionship, but in quite a different way. It's set in 1930s America, in what is quite a nihilistic and unforgiving world. Nobody trusts each other, no one wants to know who you are. They just want to get their job, make their money, and move on. But in Of Mice and Men, we follow the story of Lenny and George, who are unique in this world because they have each other. They have someone who they can rely on. And more importantly, they have someone who they can share a dream with and plan for the future, which gives them hope in, as I said before, what is a very nihilistic world. In The Little Prince, we have a companionship and a friendship which is based on helping each other rediscover what was most important in life and rediscovering the childhood curiosity that we will lose. In Of Mice and Men, we have a companionship which shows the importance of having someone who you can rely on and who you can share your hopes and dreams with, which everyone in the book, all of the characters, are craving. The third book is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, and again comes in at just under 100 pages. Arguably, it is the book that won Ernest Hemingway his Nobel Prize in Literature, and it is just a short parable where we follow the life of an old man, an old fisherman, on one of his fishing trips, where he goes very far at sea and has to battle with a large swordfish, a marlin, is what they call it in the book. The Old Man and the Sea is essentially the story of humanity's struggle against nature and against life in general. It's predicated on the idea that life is inherently suffering and that all we can do is do our best in the face of that. But ultimately, will it really amount to anything? In a way, this is Hemingway's most personal book, as the idea of fighting to survive and the hopelessness that comes with it is mirrored in Hemingway's own life and his ultimate decision to commit suicide. It also encapsulates his classic style of writing, which can be seen as a very basic form of prose. You know, he doesn't have any surplus words, he's just straight to the point, and very simplistic writing. In some instances, it can go a bit too far on the simplistic side. One example is Fiesta by Ernest Hemingway. I think it could do with a little bit more. But in The Old Man and the Sea, in books like Farewell to Arms and Hemingway's short stories, it is incredibly effective, and I think can provide a lesson for anyone who wants to get into writing of how to edit your writing to make sure it's the most impactful and the most efficient possible, which also makes it the strongest. The fourth book is Housekeeper and the Professor by the Japanese author Yoko Ogawa. It comes in at just under 200 pages, at around 180. And while it's not one of the most well-known books in this list, it is definitely one of my favourites. The Housekeeper and the Professor, as you might expect, tells the story of a housekeeper, a mathematics professor who she works for, and the housekeeper's son. Not a lot happens in the story. There's not a lot of twists and turns, but it's an incredibly heartwarming story that goes right to the heart of what makes us human. Again, like other books on this list, it talks about companionship, it talks about the social relations that we have and that are so crucial to our lives, the support that we can give each other, the passions that we share, and helping people with whatever we can offer them. What is at the crux of the story, and which makes it so unique, is that the mathematics professor has memory that only lasts 80 minutes. So we find an incredible dance between the housekeeper and that memory as she tries to interact with him and tries to build this relationship, knowing that every 80 minutes it's going to be wiped clean. He's going to forget who she is, who her son is, and they have to start from scratch. And I think that is what makes it such a heartwarming story. The fifth and final book is Animal Farm by George Orwell, and it comes in at just over 100 pages, around 115 pages. Animal Farm is a parable which discusses the totalitarianism of the 20th century, predominantly looking at Soviet Russia. But I think that a reading of it can be as political or as apolitical as you like. It stands alone as a story. The characters stand alone, and you really don't need to have any of the background context to why he wrote this book and to what makes the book so important. Obviously that can augment the story and make it even more impactful, but it's absolutely not necessary. Animal Farm, as one might guess, tells the story of a farm run by Mr. Jones at the start of the book. However, very soon into the book, we see the animals rise up, led by the pigs, two of them in particular, Napoleon and Snowball. And they are arguing, quite fairly, that they deserve better conditions. That why should the animals do all the work on the farm and get none of the rewards? In that manner, they encourage all the other animals to join them in their revolution, to rebel against Mr. Jones and to take over the farm, so that the animals control everything. They have this dream and this promise that they will live in luxury, that they won't have to work as much, but they will get more for what they do. However, it quickly transpires that the new regime soon becomes to represent the absolute worst of the old regime, as is unfortunately so typical in the revolutions that take place in the real world. If you do read this book, one of the characters to look out for is Squealer, who is essentially the propaganda arm and the media of the pigs. And he is the one who, spins everything, manages to put a good touch on it. And I think he has some of the most interesting dialogue and the most interesting speeches out of any of the characters. I hope this has inspired you to pick up a book and get reading. If it's one of these books, or if it's any book, reading is a great habit, and I think is one of the best ways to learn about ourselves and about the world around us. And if you are already an avid reader, I'd love to know what your favourite book is and what you think is a good recommendation for someone who's just looking to get into reading. See ya.